time for Lykken on Lending.
Welcome, everybody. Good to have you with us.
Welcome to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update providing up-to-the-minute information on interest rates, loan programs, and hot industry news, all related to the mortgage industry. Brought to you by Transformational Mortgage Solutions. To participate in today's program, our guest call-in line is 646-716-4972. Now here's your host of Lykken on Lending, David Lykken.
Let's begin.
Listeners, I'm excited to have back on the podcast Shashank Shekhar, who is the founder and CEO of Insta Mortgage. Love that name. It's one of the fastest growing private companies in America in the mortgage industry. Shashank is also the winner of the 2022 Entrepreneur of the Year Award by the Stevie Award, and then also RIS Media Newsmaker of the Year. There's no question, if you are in social media, you see so many of Shashank's posts. He is proficient out there and prolific in his postings. There's a lot of things we could say about Shashank, but he's a previous guest and he's an avid podcaster, a storyteller, an author, sought-after keynote speaker, and the father of one of the cutest little girls because she makes it on there every once in a while. We have some calls. So anyway, Shashank, good to have you here. I'm glad you had a chance to join back up with us.
Yeah, just super excited about being back on Lykken on Lending. Thank you for the great introduction.
You bet. And then also, Mark Helm, thanks for joining as my co-host. It's good to have you involved in this very exciting discussion.
Glad to be here and honored to be on here with Shashank.
Yeah. So Shashank, you're known as an innovator, and you once again have stumbled into some innovation. And not only that, you take a hold of it. And that's probably one of the things that gets me most excited about it. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Last time we talked about the digital human. I introduced that to you. I like looking for new things, and I like bringing new things that I see that have applications to people who will take action. And that's you. You are the very first to introduce and bring a digital human to the mortgage lending industry. You're now doing some things in artificial intelligence that are very exciting. And you've just published a book. We'll talk about that at the end of the interview, as well as just we're about ready to kick off something that is very exciting, a workshop. We'll talk about that again at the end. But let's start with talking about artificial intelligence, Shashank.
Let me first tell you what it is not, because it gets very loosely thrown, especially these days. It's like it seems everything is artificial intelligence. And let me tell you, that's not what it is. So first of all, if a system or a platform does something because you asked it to do it, meaning that it has been coded or programmed or instructed to do that, even if it looks pretty cool, it seems very slick that, hey, you are asking a question, it's answering that. You ask it something else, it's still answering that. It's not artificial intelligence, it's because it was programmed to do that. So it said, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm looking for a mortgage. It said, that's great. Which area you're thinking of buying in? I'm thinking of buying in San Francisco. Very cool. Which neighborhood? So it seems as if it's following your answer and coming up with a follow-up question, which is pretty smart and intelligent, but it's not artificial intelligence. It's an intelligence that has been fed into it, meaning that if you were to ask it a question that it was not programmed to do, it will not be able to answer that question. On the other side, artificial intelligence is a computer system or a platform that's designed to perform tasks that usually requires human intelligence. It could be recognizing speech, making decisions, identifying patterns. And I like to give a very basic, simple, easy to understand example. Like artificial intelligence uses something called machine learning. So a machine is kind of taught to recognize a pattern or a speech or make decisions. Like, for example, it can be shown like a picture of cat hundreds and thousands of times, and so that it understands what are the basic features of a cat. It has whiskers, it's kind of tiny, it has 4 legs, etc., etc. And then it's also shown the same to teach it how to recognize cat. It's also shown then hundreds and thousands of pictures that might look like a cat, maybe a baby lion, a breed of a dog that might look like a cat, or baby tiger, or something that it might mistake for a cat. So it's shown that over and over again until the machine learns on its own. That's what's machine learning. And then when you show it a cat picture, it's not programmed to do it, it's taught to do it. So it's a learning that it has gotten by itself. It's like we go to school, we learn about all these concepts. If somebody asks me, I'm not saying, hey, wait a second, let me open my textbook and give you that answer. That's not artificial intelligence. But you are like, you know it because you were taught it. That's intelligence because you're able to answer it. So that's what artificial intelligence is. And in a true form, it's super exciting because the machine is able to recognize patterns, make decisions, and give you answers to questions that it was taught, but it was not given answer to that specific question when it was designed and coded.
If anyone's listening to this podcast, they might discern that you have an Indian accent. So they're saying, well, he must be an engineer. He knows everything about this. If you want to get to know Shashank better personally, you got to go listen to some of the previous podcasts. Well, we'll post in this links in these podcasts. He's got a great story. We're not going to get into that story, but what is your background in artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I don't have engineering background. I actually went to college to study English literature. So you'll be surprised I studied William Shakespeare while my friends were learning coding or programming or designing chips or whatever that was. But then I went to business school and studied marketing. But I've always had an interest in, I actually taught technology classes, even though I'm not an engineer, to a lot of the students out of my college because I had interest in it. But I've kept that interest, especially after starting the mortgage business in 2008. Like I was doing online applications the day I got in the business in 2008. And we have been in the business long enough to know that most people didn't even know they were online.
They didn't even know that was available.
Back in 2008. Yeah. But since then, as probably, David, you and I have worked on several different projects. You have been an advisor, consultant to me. You know that I've always been looking at not technology for technology's sake, because that's a mistake that a lot of us do, especially because I'm in Silicon Valley and see how much of money is wasted on technology that really does not solve any problems. But really looking at technology from a perspective of, does it solve real problem? Is this where the consumers are going? Is this where the preference is moving? And that's where you mentioned that you led me to the first digital human for the mortgage industry. And that's an AI-powered conversational platform, much like Siri and Alexa, but way more advanced because Siri and Alexa is just a speech pattern platform, while Rachel, which is our digital human, is on a video platform. So I consider that a little bit more advanced. Since then, and not since then, before and after, I've always been looking at technology, which could be a game changer for the industry. And so we're really excited about what has come up in the last few months and to talk to more about it.
Yeah, and specifically since November 30th of 2022, what we're about to talk about. And Mark, you get to open that topic up because this is brand new, November 30th, 2022. So let's get into the topic of the day, which is ChatGPT. I'd like to have you explain what that is. Tell us everything you can about that as quickly as possible, because it is the fastest trending search word in social media. I mean, it is just trending like crazy. What is ChatGPT?
Yeah, let's talk about the trend itself first with some numbers here. I'm sure everyone on this call has probably at least heard of the name. But in case you haven't, just to give you some benchmark, Netflix, it took them about 3.5 years to get to 1 million users. Twitter did it faster in about 2 years. Facebook was even faster at 10 months. And then Spotify, which became viral from the day it was launched, to get to 1 million users in 5 months, which is super quick. And then Instagram was, I guess, even more viral because it went to 1 million users in 2.5 months. But ChatGPT, as David was saying, is if you thought Instagram and Spotify was that popular from the day it was launched, it went to 1 million users in 5 days. And that was when people hadn't even heard of it because it was just kind of launched and it was mostly in the tech circle because people did not even know what an OpenAI was and all that stuff. But ChatGPT went to 1 million users when it wasn't even mainstream, so to say, in 5 days. And it's a technology built by a company called OpenAI, which is headed by this guy called Sam Altman. Has to be one of the smartest guys on the planet, right? He ran the Y Combinator, which is a breeding ground for some of the hottest Silicon Valley companies that you've ever heard of, companies like Airbnb and DoorDash. And so he basically managed those companies from ground up, so to say. And then Elon Musk invested in OpenAI in the beginning, and then Microsoft went down to invest about $1 billion first, and then $10 billion a few months earlier than this. But those are the people who are behind this. And what ChatGPT really is that it's a conversational platform. It's called NLP, Natural Language Processing, which means you don't need any engineering skills or any special coding or programming skills to talk to it. It is just natural language. It is an AI-powered chatbot. And that's what we were talking, is that it's a truly AI-powered because it can make decisions. It can render answers on its own. It does not need to be taught. And GPT actually stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Generative meaning because it's able to generate answers on its own. And it is pre-trained transformer. So that's what it's called. But that's what ChatGPT is. And to think of it, it didn't take that much time. Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and Microsoft, all of that started talking about it in 2015. So to build something like that, which has about 175 billion parameters on which it can respond, to build something like this in 5-6 years is just, and we are already on GPT-3, which is a lot more advanced than GPT-1 or whatever. So to build something like this in 5-6 years and to this extent, and we'll be talking about some of the capabilities later, it just blows my mind away, really.
That's crazy. So Shashank, why is everyone hailing this ChatGPT as the biggest thing in technology?
I think it's the reason, first of all, it's the biggest thing is technology is because of how much work it can do. So unlike, say, a great social media platform or a great coding platform or a great search platform, all of that is very, I would say, niche specific. It does one work. Facebook, you can post stuff which other people can see it. Google, you can search stuff and they will show you search results from billions of websites in the world. So all of them are very powerful. But ChatGPT actually solves problems for you, the problems that you have on a day-to-day basis. And that's why, because of hundreds and thousands, if not millions of potential usage of the platform, the real value that it can provide, the time it can save, the quality of the outputs that it gave, that's a ton of basic stuff. I'm not even saying you have to be in the mortgage industry or real estate or somewhere or entrepreneur or something. You can do it to plan child's birthday party, or a high school student can write essays for William Shakespeare, or college students could be writing thesis on it. I'm not saying that they should be, but what I'm saying is that all of this is possible on ChatGPT, and that's why it's being hailed as the biggest technology since forever, is because it's for real. It's solving real life problems.
We're hearing things like it's the biggest thing since the invention of the internet. We all know who proclaims to have invented it, but Mark, I think we have you back now, and you're an educator, Mark. So when you start hearing people can write papers, theses, and all of that, your thoughts?
Well, recently I went in to talk to my daughter, who's a department head, and I was so excited to tell her about this new technology. And I'm talking about it in the last week. And first of all, she says, "What do you want to know about that, Dad? I know all about it." So educators are taking it real seriously. I felt kind of dumb. She said they're taking it really seriously because they want to make sure people are not going to cheat on term papers, et cetera, et cetera. And there are people in the education field who have already figured out a way to be able to check what you write in such a way to see if it's being generated by ChatGPT. Don't know how they're doing that. I'm going to learn more about that, and I'll tell you about that later. But I'm just fascinated what Shashank has done and what he's working on here and what he's told us today, because I just see this as being a big player in our industry and helping us along the education of our customers, inquiries, helping us communicate to our customers better, helping us with our social media. And it's just really exciting. So, Shashank, I would just like to ask you a question, and you've responded to it when we talked in the past, but how do you feel about this being a stepping stone to create really a boutique industry for people to really show other people how to use it? And how does that lead into seminars and other things like we've been talking about and whatnot to explore what you can do on ChatGPT? Because I don't think most people are going to believe it till they see it in person, how it's happening and what can be done with it.
Yeah. And what we'll be talking about is literally on this podcast, because we have 35, 40 minutes to talk about it. It's a fraction of what it can do. Just in terms of capability, understand that ChatGPT has already passed law exams, business school exams, medical school exams, and we are talking Wharton MBA. We are not talking, your online MBA schools. And it has gotten grades in like B- to B kind of a grade. So it just tells you that it can pass some of the toughest exams there is. And that shows you, again, I keep going back to what an artificial intelligence is, because you can't code those answers into any system because the system doesn't even know what questions will be asked in those exams. That's true artificial intelligence, is because it has read all those textbooks, so to say, and now it goes to exam just like a human would and answers the question and passes those exams. But talking of what it can do for the industry, really, we'll jump onto some of the use cases here, but given the potential of it, I think there is a huge opportunity here for everyone within the industry to learn more about it. And we will be doing, I think we decided to do a workshop for industry professionals to teach more about it is because there's one thing talking about it on a podcast when you're listening it in audio format. It's a completely different thing live for me to be actually doing it the way I do it for my business already. And it's crazy that in 3 months, I've been doing so much work on this, but really show you. And the good thing is that ChatGPT is free. So it's not as if even if you learn it, then you're like, oh, I have to pay hundreds of dollars to access it. It's because it's completely free. There is a paid version for $20 a month. And I will recommend you take it because then you get practically no downtime, which you will probably see in a free account. But it's a still completely full version. You get all the features with the free account as well that you get with the paid account. But I would really love to show on that workshop that all the use cases and do it live so that you can see that how easy it is to instruct. But sometimes just a word here and there might make a difference. So you will get all the prompts. I mean, it'll be done right there in front of you. You will get notes for all of that stuff. And like some of the other platforms, like a CRM or something, you have to take months before you can get it ready to actually work for you. This is something that you will actually be working on it as I'm doing it with me live. And that's why I like to call it more a workshop than a webinar or seminar or anything else, is because you will actually be working with me. And by the end of the workshop, you would have actually probably achieved more in some of the content creation than you have done in months, if not years. So really looking forward to that.
We're going to be doing that, listeners, on Thursday, March 30th at 11 a.m. Central Time. And so mark your calendars. We'll be sending out a lot of notifications. We'll be talking about it every one of our upcoming podcasts. So March 30th, that's a Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Time. You can do the calculation for your own time zone from based on that. But we're really looking forward to that. It's going to be a workshop, and you'll be able to dial in and get a lot of content out of it. One of the questions I had is, how do you access ChatGPT?
Yeah, and that's another beauty of it is there's no downloading of software or an app that's required. And that's just makes it simple because you could be on any device anywhere and you could access it. It's just the website or a web page. And the address for that is chat.openai.com. So as I mentioned before, OpenAI is the company that built this platform. And so it's chat.openai.com. And the main screen, when you get to it, it really starts with 3 things. You will see 3 boxes called examples, capabilities, and limitations, which kind of gives you a basic flavor of, hey, these are the things I'm capable of. These are some of the examples you can test me on. But it's also very honest upfront. It tells you these are my limitations. And the couple of limitations it tells you is that, hey, sometimes I might still get incorrect information because I'm still relatively new to it. And if I do, give me a thumbs down, so to say, because every answer has a thumbs up or a down so that it can learn from it. And it also says that it has limited knowledge of world and events after 2021. So a lot of the recent data may not be available because they're trying to perfect the system. And they are doing their best to not to produce any harmful instructions or biased content. But sometimes it filters out, and it does give you that as a limitation. And I know for sure that they have been very hard at work to try not to have that at all, but it becomes very hard when a platform knows everything there is to know. Yeah. And sometimes somebody can trick it into answering a question that even though it was programmed not to answer it.
Sam Altman and the team there have done a really conscientious job of going in intentionally eliminating really socially harmful information such as child pornography. They hired a large group out of Nigeria to go through all of this and just kick that out and block that from the system. So they're really being responsible of how they roll this out. So kudos to Sam Altman and the crew there for rolling this out in a socially conscious, healthy way for all of us. So it's not something that that can be used for the purposes intended. Let's get into some of the use cases. When we've talked a couple of times, it really got me excited about what this can do, and specifically in the mortgage industry. I know we're going to cover a lot of this during the workshop, but give us some examples. What are appetites? What are some of the things people will experience at the workshop?
So again, as you rightly said, there could be dozens of use cases, but I'll probably get into the top 2-3 use cases on this podcast, and we'll get to some more of those when we're doing this live. But let's talk something super simple, so to say, is that let's talk about social media management. Practically all of us on this call have social media accounts. A lot of us struggle to manage it in an effective way, in a sense that some of the top frustrations or questions or pain points that I hear from people when I'm speaking across the country is, hey, I don't know what to post. I don't know when to post. If I want to post this, then how do I word it? How do I write it? If I want to do videos, which practically all of us know now that has become integral to any kind of marketing in this world, I don't know how to script it. I don't know if I'll sound right. So, and these are probably 10 problems to social media management that I've already listed. You might have a few more. And so to test something like that, and I'd love to show you this in a live environment, but just to prepare for this podcast, I asked ChatGPT, create a social media content calendar for a week for a mortgage loan officer in Dallas, Texas. And that location could be anywhere, of course. I was trying to be specific because most likely you work local markets. And I was trying to show you that this can work for very local markets. You can even, Dallas, Texas, you can actually go down to a neighborhood, by the way, in Dallas, and it'll still work for you.
Wow. It'll go literally down to the neighborhood. This is so exciting.
It is. And I'll not read the entire thing, but this is what ChatGPT came back with. And by the way, it takes it seconds, not minutes. I mean, fraction of a second actually to start generating an answer. And PD came back saying, sure, here's your social media content calendar for a mortgage loan officer in Dallas, Texas. And it says Monday, share a post about current interest rates, post a customer testimonial. Tuesday, share a blog post about benefits of working with a local mortgage lender. Create a graphic that highlights different types of mortgage loans. Wednesday, share an infographic. Post a video explaining the importance of video credit scores. Thursday, share a post about housing market in Dallas. Create a poll. Friday, share an article, post a customer success story. Saturday, share a post about benefits of getting pre-approved, post a video explaining different factors. And Sunday, motivational quote and behind the scenes. So first of all, one thing that you should understand here is that if you went to any social media experts, they will focus mostly on one channel, one kind of post. You will see that it's suggesting you 7 multiplied by 2, right? 2 posts every day, 7 days of a week post. And they are very different from each other in terms of the format you should be using, the content you should be creating, which means they'll be highly engaging. Your audience will not be looking at the same post over again or the same style over and over again. But watch, this is where it becomes very interesting is that, so I took all that content calendar and then I said, okay, that's great, ChatGPT, but you know what? I don't know how to write video scripts. I mean, I want to record this video that you mentioned, but I have no idea how to do it. So I asked ChatGPT as a follow-up question, which is, by the way, a great feature of ChatGPT is that it works like a chat, which means you can keep asking it follow-up questions after follow-up questions after follow-up questions. Unlike Google, where you have to start the search all over again, this is like a chat between, say, 2 humans, so to say, because it has human intelligence. So I said, for the Wednesday video idea that you gave me, can you write the script of the video and keep it to 3 minutes length? So again, notice the fact that it also takes instructions in terms of the size of the response. So you can do a 3 minutes length, 30 seconds length. If you're trying to do YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, you can keep it to 90 seconds, whatever you want to. And then I won't read you the entire script here, but it went on to give me the entire script for a 3-minute video. And then Mark and I were talking a little earlier before the podcast recording, and he was like, okay, that's great, but I wanted to kind of do it in a different tone. So I went back to ChatGPT and said, okay, that video script sounds great, but can you add a touch of humor to it? And then ChatGPT went and gave examples around prom and football and other stuff, made it look a little bit more humorous, a little bit more conversational. And if that's your tone, that's your language in which you speak, now you have not just a video script, but something people will find probably even more engaging because it's a touch of humor. And I can keep going on, and this is just the first use case, David, but you can see what it is capable of just from that use case. Even if you were to use just for this, everyone on this call, that's, I don't know, that saves a ton of your time, makes you look like a rock star on social media, and really propels your lead generation because your audience is engaging with you so much more now.
Great points. Mark?
Shashank, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be one of your beta tests on this because you've given me so many ideas to try for my consulting business, coaching business, et cetera. I know David feels the same way I do, that this will be very helpful for us to reach people, better understand what we do and all. But one of the things I wanted to mention that we talked about earlier and we haven't talked about here yet, I think, is different languages. Everything we seem to deal with, if you're an air traffic controller, you speak English. Yes, and noted language. What about language applicability for ChatGPT?
So 99 languages. The last I checked is what it supports. Of course, it supports all the major languages, but there are also a ton of smaller country languages that will support. So that's where it is at about 99 languages right now.
Wow.
know their adding languages on a fairly consistent. And what's so nice about it, you may not speak Spanish well. If you're a loan officer working with a Spanish-speaking person, or you want to communicate to them, you can you can do a query or set up a question. They'll come back and say, now, could you prepare that question in Spanish and of a particular dialect even? I mean, it's just amazing what this thing will come back with and how it can powerfully impact the way you do business.
Same video script that we talked about, Mark, which you asked it to convert into maybe with a touch of humor. I went back to ChatGPT and said, hey, can you write the same script in Spanish? And voila, of course, it did it in 3 seconds. It gave me the entire script in Spanish. So if you can speak Spanish, if you want to use as a closed caption or whatever, but there you go. Now you have the entire script in Spanish if you want to use that.
It's just extraordinary when you start looking at the possibilities of what this is. One of the things I love about you, Shashank, you share an idea, you quickly filter it in. If it's a good, you throw it out. If it's not, you keep it in and you take action on it. And that's what you did with the digital human. That's what you're doing with ChatGPT. And now you have literally written a book on this, the first on the topic in the mortgage industry. Tell us about your book.
David, I like to be a first. So
you are.
Yeah, sometimes we make the perfect the enemy of good and don't ship out stuff quickly enough. But thankfully, this is a pretty good book that's done. So it is ChatGPT for lenders. And again, you're right. It's so much about, okay, yes, ChatGPT is great and all that, but how do I use in my lending business? How do I use this in mortgage business? And I'm glad that I have the background both in technology and marketing and in the mortgage industry. So I'm able to combine all of that to bring you this book. And the great news is that, I mean, if you're listening to this, you're an audience of Lykken on Lending podcast, you get to download it for free. So all you have to go do is go to chatgptforlenders.com, and courtesy of Lykken on Lending, you get to download the entire ebook for free, no strings attached.
Let's think forward a little bit. What are some very likely possibilities? One question, is this going to eliminate the need for a loan officer? I can almost hear somebody thinking that. This doesn't, or does it? I mean, give us your thoughts on that.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's several times we have.
It was a rhetorical question, but I wanted to go to there because
there's so much
fear in the industry right now. What's going on?
Some of the concerns. The problem is that you keep hearing this all the time. Google wants to get in the mortgage business. This will eliminate all the loan officers. And Amazon wants to get into the mortgage business. And let me give you data. It's not exactly a loan officer, but similar data. So in the 1980s, about 81% of home buyers and sellers used real estate agents. It's a similar industry. I mean, it's technically the same. But in 2020, 88% of home buyers and sellers use real estate agents. So while all these technologies were coming saying that, oh, the real estate agents will be like insurance agents and travel agents, what we have seen in the last 35, 40 years, David and Mark, is actually there are more people using real estate agents now than they were using back then. It's because I think the role of loan officers and real estate agents is not just something that can be automated. There are so many more layers to it. It's the biggest purchase that you will ever make. And so it becomes very important. But what it does is that it will make some loan officers smarter than the others. It's survival of the fittest at the end of the day. You could become smarter in the sense that you know how to use ChatGPT to your advantage. If you're that kind of a loan officer, you will be ahead than 9 out of 10 loan officers who do not either know how to use it or do not use it in an optimized way. And that's why optimized way is an operative keyword here, is because, you might know it, you might be able to get a couple of things out of it, but are you getting almost everything that you can? Because if you can, it's going to save you hundreds of hours, will elevate your marketing to a level that you've never seen before. And so will the lead acquisition and your perception as an authority in the market. If you do all of that, you'll just be a smarter loan officer. I'm not saying that the loan officer will become extinct or will even be close to extinct, because this does not impact our businesses directly in a sense of whether we will be there or not, but it definitely gives so-called unfair advantage to the people who are really good at it.
Shashank, I support that 100%. I've just about finished my book on leadership, and one of the key principles of leadership is communications. And if we make a loan officer where they are more knowledgeable, because they can do a little research and it can format things for them, outline it for them on how to present it, and then help them fine tune that over and over again, they're going to be better communicators, and they're going to serve the customer better. They're going to serve their company better, and they're going to serve themselves better. So I support exactly what you said, and 100% believer in what you said.
No, yeah. And just continuing on with the use cases, a couple of more, because we, of course, have limited time here, is, so we talked about social media. Let's talk about email marketing. And the good thing about ChatGPT is that it understands all the persuasive frameworks which are there. Some of you might not know it, and I won't get into the details of it. But there are basically 5 different persuasive models, which is AIDA, AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. And then there is something called PAS, PAS, which is identify the problem, why is the borrower agitated about it, and then provide a solution. There's FAB, which is features, advantage, and benefits, which we see in a lot of TV advertisements. And there are 4 Ps, which is promise, picture, proof, and push, and the 5 Cs, which is clear, concise, compelling, and credible call to action. The great thing is that ChatGPT knows all the persuasive framework there is, and it uses that. In fact, you can tell it to write a persuasive email in one of these 5 persuasive frameworks. So if you, for example, like the attention, interest, desire, or action framework, then you can tell it, hey, can you write something about why someone should use me as a loan officer using the AIDA format? And the interesting thing is I actually wrote something, but I use the PAS platform, which is our framework called Problem Agitation Solution, is that what's your problem? What's keeping you agitated? And here is my solution. And one of the examples that I wanted to give was from a CNN article that I read recently, and I'll quote them about an agent named Ashion. And it said, recently a client reached out to Ashion with a problem. The woman had moved into a pre-construction home and could not open her windows. She had attempted to contact the developer for months with no response. Ashion ran a copy of one of her emails through ChatGPT, asking it to rewrite with an emphasis on the liability implications. So kind of a legal threat, so to say. And ChatGPT wrote it as a legal issue. And all of a sudden, the developer showed up at her house, he said, unquote. And it just tells you that it has not just your basic email writing, saying, hey, write an email to this, but actually use persuasion as a technique, even with some legal emphasis, as we saw in this case. Again, just another way of how you can elevate your marketing. This is, of course, a use case for email marketing. And we'll go through some of these examples using some of the persuasive framework on the workshop when we do it.
I'm so looking forward to that workshop. I want to get into it yesterday. How can people get a hold of a copy of your book? We're going to put a link in the show notes. How else? Is there a website or a landing page that you have that set up for?
So it's ChatGPT for lenders. So FOR, that's fully spelled out, lenders.com. And that's where you'll get the free ebook for the entire thing. And by the way, that ebook starts from the very basics. So don't be afraid if you have either never used it, never heard of it, don't know where to start. We will start from very basic, give you screenshots upon screenshots of how do you sign up, which, by the way, all it requires is your email and your phone number, to how do you chat, like how do you write your commands, how does it follow? Like you will have every single thing that you need to know to make this. By the end of that ebook, my guess is you'll probably be in the top 10% of loan officers in the country already who are using ChatGPT, because I know that less than 1% are, maybe less than 0.1% are at this point of time. So you'll be ahead of 95% of the industry just by the end of ebook and implementing what I've written there.
Give us that website one more time. So, because I know many out there will say, hey, I wish I had a pen and paper. Now I've got one. Give it to us one more time.
It says ChatGPT, ChatGPT for lenders, FORLENDERS.com.
Good. Go get it, listeners. And then join us on Thursday, March 30th at 10 a.m. Central Time. Man, Shashank, every time I sit down with you, I just get a little bit smarter. I'm so admire your innovativeness, how you jump on things. Mark, you and I talked about this earlier. It's so fun to be around. You and I are a couple old guys at this. We're getting into it. We're trying to keep up, but it's really fun to have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with Mark. With Shashank. Mark, any thoughts you have as we get ready to exit the podcast?
Shashank is not dealing with us. He's making us not older, because we are older, but he's making us better at what we do. He's revitalizing brain cells. That's a good deal.
That's a good way to put it. Shashank, any final thoughts before we call it a podcast to a wrap?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we talked about all of this over the last 40 minutes or so, but we need to wrap our heads around when something like this arrives, and that to something which is so easy to use. It's literally as if you're talking to me or David or Mark. I mean, the instructions are so easy to be given to ChatGPT, but we need to embrace it. These are the things that I give an example of the fact that, hey, if you were working in the mortgage industry in the 80s or 90s and don't know, using Texas Instrument calculator to calculate mortgage payment, and when online calculators came in and loan origination system came in, you weren't the one saying that, oh, I don't want to be doing that. I want to be stuck on my calculator doing this. This is that kind of an opportunity. This changes your marketing game. This changes your research game. This changes your authority game. This changes your reach game. This changes your lead generation game. But you need to be open to it, really open to learning from people who are already doing it and succeeding at it. But this is probably once in a decade kind of an opportunity for all of us within the industry and outside. So I will, just from someone who's always thinks of giving to the industry and trying to make everyone in it better, just from that perspective of being your friend here, I would highly encourage you to look into it in a much deeper way where it can make profound impact to your business.
Will change the way we do business without question. Probably the biggest innovation since the internet itself. Thank you so much for being here, Shashank. And thank you, Mark, for joining me on this interview.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me back.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update with your host, David Lykken of Transformational Mortgage Solutions. Join us next week, and thanks for listening.